Football, also known as soccer, is a source of joy for billions of people in the world. It's fun, harmless, and relatively safe to play compared to some other sports. That being said, the sport isn't without its deadly tragedies. From plane crashes, bad policing which led to crushing, and even players attempting a backflip. These are some of the deadliest incidents in football history. Let's start with some actual football players. Emiliano Sala was a striker from Argentina who moved to France in 2010 to join the Bordeaux Youth Academy. He showed a lot of potential from a young age and eventually went on to play 120 matches for Nantes, scoring 42 times for them. In 2019, when he was 28, he signed a contract to join Premier League club Cardiff City. The manager of Cardiff at the time, Neil Warnock, made Emiliano his prime target to help Cardiff's chances of avoiding relegation to the Championship. A £15 million transfer was agreed, which was a record for Cardiff City at the time. Emiliano almost went to Turkish club Galatasaray on loan and nearly went to a Chinese club in Beijing. But the Premier League is the biggest league in the world and he wanted the best move for his own career. Emiliano travelled to Cardiff with his agent to meet with Cardiff's manager and chief executive before the deal between the two clubs had completed. He visited Cardiff a second time to conduct a medical test ahead of the transfer, which went just fine. The signing was completed the next day, with Sala signing a 3.5-year contract. He remained in Cardiff to do some press duties and was officially unveiled as a Cardiff player the day after his medical. Cardiff gloated of the signing on social media since it was their most expensive signing in history. He flew back to Nantes to collect his personal belongings and say goodbye to his teammates. Speaking to Cardiff City's website, he described being the club's new record signing as special. On the 21st of January 2019, Emiliano tweeted out a goodbye message to the Nantes fans, and then boarded a Piper Malibu aircraft to make his way to Cardiff to start his new job. Tragically, he was never able to start his new life in the Premier League after the plane went missing. The same aircraft and pilot had flown with Sala to Nantes 2 days earlier, but on the 23rd of January, Channel Islands Air Search reported there was no hope of finding any survivors in the water. The Argentine news outlet Olé released a WhatsApp voice message from Sala that he sent to his friends while he was on the plane. It translated to,
"Hola hermanitos, ¿cómo andan loquitos locos? Hermano, estoy muerto. Estuve acá antes haciendo cosas y no termina más. Así que nada, muchachos, estoy acá arriba del avión que parece que se está poca de a pedazo y me estoy yendo para Cardiff, loco, que mañana sí, ya arrancamos. A la tarde arrancamos a entrenar, muchachos, con el nuevo equipo, a ver qué pasa. Así que, ¿cómo andan ustedes, hermanito? ¿Todo bien? Si en 1 hora y media no tienen novedades mías, no sé si van a mandar a alguien a buscarme porque no me van a encontrar, pero ya saben. Papá, qué miedo que tengo.
Guernsey police initially searched 1,700 square miles of the English Channel in 3 days, but no plane was found. The police had called off the search since the plane would have sank in the water and was likely sitting at the bottom. This led to notable Argentine footballers like Lionel Messi, Sergio Aguero, and Diego Maradona to call for the search efforts to continue. On the 3rd of February, an underwater search found wreckage from the aircraft at a depth of 63 meters, and only one body visible inside the wreckage. This was confirmed to be Emiliano, and once the news broke, it shocked everyone. A few years later, some recordings surfaced of David Ibbotson, the pilot who died in the crash, saying some worrying things about the 35-year-old Malibu plane.
I picked a footballer up from Cardiff. He's just been brought from Nantes. I think it's about £20 million worth or something. He entrusted me to pick him up in a dodgy Mirage. Normally I have my life jacket in my seats, but tomorrow I'm wearing my life jacket, that's for sure. I'm sort of like mid-channel, and bang. That Malibu, occasionally you've got it's like a mist, but it's, every so often you can feel it. Very, very low throughout the airplane. Anyway, I'm flying along and then boom, my head on. So I thought, so I put everything forward and checked the parameters, everything was good when it was still flying, but it sort of like got your attention, you know what I mean? Yeah. I established that it was okay, so I carried on, got into Nantes, landed, just in the aircraft, off wrong way, then down the taxiway, and I'm trying to turn left, no left flipping brake pedal. This aircraft, I think it's got to go back in the hangar. Might be your last chance to have a good old chat with me in a good old moment tomorrow.
The body of Sala was confirmed to have high levels of carbon monoxide, and the pilot likely was exposed to it as well, which is probably what caused the crash. The next footballer tragically passed away at an even younger age. Miklos Feher was a Hungarian striker who was playing for Portuguese team Benfica. The 24-year-old man had 25 appearances for his country and 7 goals in 30 appearances for Benfica. During a match against Vitória de Guimarães, Miklos came off the bench and provided an assist right away to make the score 1-0. Towards the very end of the match, during injury time, Miklos received a yellow card from the referee, and can be seen sarcastically smiling at him once his team have pretty much won the game already, with only a short amount of time left in the game. The referee runs off to continue the rest of the match, but Miklos suddenly stops smiling, bends over for a short while seemingly in pain, and then collapses backwards onto the grass. Members of both teams rushed over to aid him immediately before medical personnel arrived on the pitch. CPR was performed unsuccessfully, and then Miklos was rushed to hospital in an ambulance. The cause of death was cardiac arrhythmia brought on by hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. In layman's terms, this meant that Miklos had thickened heart tissue, which made it harder for his heart to pump blood. And this fact, paired with the intense physical activity he was doing at the time, is what caused the sudden tragedy. He was only 24 years old. A player that was only 23 years old was Peter Biaksangzuala. The young man from Mizoram, India, was a midfielder playing in the Mizoram Premier League at the time. On the 14th of October 2014, Peter scored an equalising goal for his team in the 62nd minute. In celebration, he attempted some kind of a somersault but landed terribly on his neck. It caused severe trauma to his spinal cord, and medical personnel rushed onto the field. He was taken to a nearby hospital and underwent a spinal surgery. 5 days later, he tragically passed away. Footballers aside, there have also been a few tragedies involving fans, the biggest one being on the 24th of May 1964 in Lima, Peru. The match on that day was Peru versus Argentina in a qualifier for the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. The stadium was packed with 53,000 passionate supporters. Argentina were winning 1-0, but with only 6 minutes remaining, Peru scored an equaliser, only to be ruled out by the referee. With tensions so high and stakes so large, the fans became incredibly angry and invaded the pitch. The police shot tear gas and fired gunshots into the air to prevent more and more fans from entering the field. It caused a huge panic and a mass exodus to avoid the tear gas. Thousands of fans made it towards the exits. The fans rushed to exit the stadium but were blocked by the corrugated steel shutters at the end of every tunnel, which were all closed since the game hadn't even ended yet, and nobody had the chance to open them. Some of the shutters finally burst open amidst all of the smoke and chaos, but many of the people in the crush passed away from internal hemorrhaging and asphyxia. Those who remained in the stadium were all okay, and a baby was even born inside the stadium at the height of the panic. 328 people lost their lives and 500 were injured. Those who made it out of the stadium without being crushed were rioting and causing destruction all around the area. As of 2024, the Peruvian government still hasn't conducted an in-depth investigation into the disaster. It still remains the most fatal incident in sports history. Another tragedy involving planes was the Munich Air Disaster in 1958. The plane was carrying 44 people, including the Manchester United players and manager, Matt Busby. 20 people died at the scene and 3 more died later on in hospital. 8 of the fatalities were Manchester United players, and the plane crash was actually caused by partially melted snow at the end of the runway. The Man United team were travelling back to England after beating Red Star Belgrade in Serbia. The plane stopped to refuel in Munich, Germany, but the conditions were quite bad since it was a snowy February. The melting snow stopped the plane from reaching its full speed before takeoff, and the plane ran out of runway and couldn't slow down fast enough to abort the takeoff. Matt Busby remained manager for years after the crash and had to rebuild the team, eventually winning the European Cup 10 years later in 1968. A few years later in 1971, up in Scotland, the Ibrox disaster took place. A match was going on between Rangers and Celtic, one of the biggest rivalries in football. The two biggest teams in Scotland faced off at Rangers' home stadium. They were winning 1-0, but during the final moments of the match, a massive crush took place on Stairway 13, which was a popular exit route from the stadium. The narrow staircase caused a bottleneck as thousands of fans made their way out of the stadium. The staircase had a steep incline which made it harder for people to move quickly. The final whistle was blown and even more people left their seats to leave. This led to a fatal crush which caused 66 people to lose their lives. The staircase was permanently closed and led to improvements in safety regulations within stadiums. The design of Ibrox came under scrutiny as the disaster was purely due to the bottleneck on Stairway 13.